Hello and thanks for joining us on our show, Spiritual States. With us is Dr. Michael Laitman. Hello. And today we're going to talk about such states as freedom, equality, and fraternity. Truly, the French Revolution. Yeah, exactly. I wanted to say that we'll take a tour into the past, the Great French Revolution, end of the 18th century. The first words of the Republican division was freedom. People all lifelong fought for freedom. And I'd like to ask, what is freedom, equality, and fraternity from the point of view of the wisdom of Kabbalah? As written in the Declaration of Human Rights, freedom is the ability to do anything that does not bring harm to another. Do you agree? Well, in a certain framework, yeah. Because it doesn't breach the boundaries of nature. The entire problem is that freedom, equality, and fraternity is declared by people from what they understand, from what they see in front of them, according to their education or against their education. So it's not the laws of nature or anything. Of course not. Kabbalah talks about the laws of nature. It's something much broader, and it sounds differently. Okay, from the point of view of nature. From the point of view of nature, man cannot be free because he is inside his own nature. How do we come out of our own nature? That's the problem. I, in accordance with my nature, maybe I don't wish to harm anyone else, or I do wish someone else harm. So how do I act here? By nature, I'm a certain person, another person is a different person. Kind or not, edgy, dependent. We have different various good and bad qualities, phobias. What are we going to do? So that's a philosophical question. Is man evil by nature or not? Completely evil. Meaning what? That I think about everything only to my own benefit, and maybe I do not wish harm to another, but if I'll get benefit out of it, then I'll bring harm upon another as well. And here it's a kind of a gray area. So from the point of view of Kabbalah, he is completely evil, written so in the Bible, in the Torah, that man's nature is evil. The egoistic desire to delight myself at anyone's expense. This is how we were created. What can we do? If in animals it's limited by their instincts, food, health, and procreation, then man wants to swallow the entire world. So in this regard, there's no freedom. Right. The evil inclination controls, rules man. If this is how he was created in this world, he'll use others. Right. And obviously here we need to add some kind of education, restricting laws, public opinion, etc. But man in and of himself is evil. That's why the government needs to set certain laws, meaning in society there need to be laws that limit man's evil nature. Right. His drives. And it says so in the Torah. Yetzer Adam ha minuav, meaning that man's inclination is evil from the start. It's his very essence. Even before he's born, there's already evil in him. Okay, we won't get into what's the purpose of it all, etc. That's later. The question is, what's the difference between freedom and anarchy? Freedom is a conscious need to be in a state in which you can correctly interact with other people. And anarchy is where each is allowed to do whatever they feel like, simply in accordance with their own strength and abilities. So freedom is limited anarchy. where I limit myself, restrict myself, otherwise I will be restricted. So, from the point of view of Kabbalah, that's clear that man's nature is evil, and you need to limit man's nature. Right, but we limit it through education, public opinion, etc. Meaning these limitations might have a non-compulsory character, but one of education, incentives, etc. For example, things like freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom of trade. Humanity, for thousands of years, fought for different freedoms, and eventually what we see is that man has no freedom. He starts to acknowledge that in his nature there's absolutely no freedom. Man's not born by his own freedom, he doesn't die by his own freedom. You're born and you die, not by your own free will, and therefore there is no freedom. Freedom is only in relation to as if I can go to the right, go to the left, do something close around me in every given moment, but that's also not freedom, because I can't even imagine the measure to which I'm pressed by this network of forces and governance. No, I'm not talking about that. Obviously, our DNA influences us, society influences a person, and even when we talk about the freedom of choosing a religion, obviously it depends on where a person was born, what generation, etc. But a person does have the illusion of freedom. It's an illusion. Yeah, our entire world's an illusion, so, right, we exist within the boundaries of this illusion and are fighting for it. When we're talking about freedom of speech or freedom of religion, these are very basic things. Are you in favor of it? I'm not in favor, I'm not against. To give a person the ability to exist within this illusion, this is the concern of all governments and rulers, etc. How to indulge the public so that they'll be satisfied, happy, but really to control them from every which side. That's the only thing left, both for the public and their rulers, governors, etc. I'll ask more concretely. Freedom of speech. Is it good when there's freedom of speech in a certain country? Suppose I can write whatever I want about whomever I want. For example, about 30 years ago, both of us, we lived in the former USSR, and for things like that, someone could throw you in jail. So it's good or not when there's such freedom? Any kind of freedom is relative, and it needs to strictly correspond to the development of society. Meaning, education, restrictions, everything there is. It needs to reach such a system in which a person will feel himself, on the one hand, comfortable, on the other hand, free, from another side, safe, secure, and these are all contradicting conditions, etc. So, it needs to be a very flexible network that needs to be created in society. And it's a problem to this day. And we see that all societies are fighting for pluralism, for as if each for his own freedom of opinion, so that his opinion will rule, etc. Meaning freedom involves a constant battle. But what about freedom of trade, free market? Is it good or not? But we see that it's not free. There is nothing free. Since our world's governed by the ego, there can't be anything free. It is ruled by very strict egoistic laws. And we need to somehow correctly arrange these laws so that we'll not simply kill each other around each and every corner, etc. We need to necessarily somehow put ourselves into some kind of network of mutual relations, consents, agreements, and these conditions that we agree upon that exist in society, that date back to ancient Rome, etc., and even before that, they all exist. We establish ourselves on them. The Roman law, Greek law, etc., the French Revolution, etc. That all exists to this day. So these are all things that limit. Freedom is a limitation, but within the boundaries of these limitations, a person feels himself free. From what? That simply no one will just attack him just so or do something to him. So freedom is actually a collection of laws that help us how not to kill each other, and within these laws, to exist. In your blog, you write that we live in a system of complete interactions between us, so we all influence each other's fate. That's already a different system, not the one that we created, but the system of nature that holds us together. So in such a system, when a person lives in such a system, does he have freedom when we define each other's fate? We don't choose our nature. We exist in it. So there's nothing you can actually do. That's how we need to accept it. If to look at history, we see how from the fight for external freedoms, like the freedom of movement, of trade, that a person has the right to live. What we come to today is that we're discovering that we don't have inner freedom as well. No, today we're approaching a state that shows us that we're not free at all because we grew out of those boundaries, laws, social consensus that we previously existed in, and it seemed to us that we're free. Today we're demanding a different kind of freedom, greater freedom, spiritual freedom. And therefore humanity is starting a new phase in its evolvement. That's above the ego, meaning now we're starting to feel that we're actually enslaved to our ego. So can we say that from the point of view of the wisdom of Kabbalah, freedom is in that a person himself acknowledges that he has no freedom and to wish to acquire some new qualities? Yes. I'd put it this way. Freedom in its absolute meaning. Freedom above our own nature. When we acquire the nature of the Creator, as it says in the wisdom of Kabbalah, is a person free? Because it's written to be a servant of the Creator. It's written that way simply in order to show us how much we're entering a different state. When we really acquire the quality of bestowal, of love, of mutual connection, then through that quality of absolute mutual connection, commitment, support, we sign a completely different agreement of love another as yourself. Each must reach this state, and when we come to this state, we start feeling absolute freedom, a paradox. Meaning myself to choose this kind of attitude toward another, an attitude of love another as yourself, in that a person's free to treat others that way? No. When he starts doing it, he starts feeling that in that he enters complete freedom. But to choose it, as a rule, he's not free to do. Our ego is built in such a way, created that way on purpose, that it pushes us towards the need to reach connection with others, so much so that we practically need to be in love another as yourself. So the conclusion is that a person is not free. His nature is evil, and the only free choice that a person has from the point of view of Kabbalah is to acknowledge it and to rise above it to a new nature, which is the same as revealing the Creator, etc. Yeah. And when a person is no longer in his own nature of the desire to receive, but is already in the nature of the Creator, he has these two natures, and then he can choose. He always has to choose between his innate nature and the nature of the Creator. He combines it in the so-called middle line, and then he feels himself completely free. So I can't be in the nature of the Creator. I can't be in complete bestow like the Creator because I'm not the Creator. I can't be in complete reception because in that I'm the complete opposite of Him and I feel completely pressed from all sides. I can only choose this kind of combination between them, in which I will feel myself not in the one or the other, but in the so-called middle line. And in that case, I feel myself as a created being free. So it's the unification of opposites. I withhold within myself these two opposite natures, and above them, I build something more absolute. Yes. Thank you very much. Till next time, all the best.